Well, good morning. It's Tom again. Fall morning this morning. Not hot, not cool. It was foggy as all get out this earlier though. So fall's in the air. It's not gonna be long before we're burning wood, trying to stay ahead of the cold. Anyway, well, I figured I'd join you today. It's just a kind of a supplemental. Had a few questions about, the tilapia deal. And I think people are misunderstanding. Years ago when I tried this before, and it had moderate success. And I think people believe that, well, you raise them for food. Yeah, I guess you can. But by the time you're done, you've got so much into them. It's ridiculous. Your profit margin would be slim to none. What I would be using them for is something a little bit different. Tilapia's got a lot of uses, actually. The water can be used for like hydroponics. You can sell it to these hydroponic places and they'll buy it. There's the profit margin on that's extremely high. But we don't really have a lot of that going on here in Kansas, but it does happen. And nothing bothers it. It can sit out there for a long time. It can freeze. It doesn't seem to affect it. So, if it's there, great. And if they want it, perfect. There's a lot of other things going on. I've heard of some treatment for burn victims. They're using the skin to overlay the burns, and somehow or another, something in the skin affects and heals the burns faster. So there's that. I probably won't be doing that. My target is algae consumption. You put these tilapia in your ponds and they eat the algae, the moss. They're grass eaters a lot of the time. So, if you have a pond that's covered with moss, you can't even fish in it. You put in so many tilapia per acre, they consume the grass, the algae, and they reproduce. Before you know it, you got a ton of tilapia in your pond. In this area, it's great because they can't take over the pond. You put in certain breeds of fish you put in your ponds, and they're so prolific and they breed so fast that they'll just take over your pond. People are concerned about invasive species, which is very, very good point. In this area, we don't have to worry about it. We have a colder climate in the wintertime, so yes, these fish go in your pond. Yes, they're very prolific, and yes, they create thousands and thousands of babies. You can jump 20,000 fish real quick. That being said, what's good in this area, like I said, in Kansas area, it gets really cold in the wintertime. So what happens is these fish, it hits like 45 or so degrees, they die. That's actually good for your pond. Not only is it good for your pond, it's good for the fish that are in there. There's a supplemental feed for the fish through the winter. These fish have a tendency of, when they die, they just drop to the bottom. And I'll tell you how I know that later on. And that helps the pond health itself. So, these fish, they can start producing within a few months of birth, or hatching. So they're 4 ounces or so, they can start spawning. they're very quick to reproduce. As far as stocking, you are going to want between 10 and 20 pounds of fish per acre. So, you know, if you're dropping them in at 4 ounces, 4 ounces, they're about 4 inches long. Now, that's not very big, but they can evade predators at that size. And they're high speed. I mean, they move extremely fast. So they can actually outrun things. But anyway, my point is, at that size, they're producing, they're eating, and they're evading predators. So they do get bigger. So and you're going to want between 10 and 20 pounds per acre. So you're going to need about 4 fish per pound. So that's, just do the math. That's a good round number. You know, it also depends on the coverage of grass that you have. But anyway, back to how fast they swim. When mine in captivity started getting about 4 inches long, 3 to 4 inches long, I would go check on them, and they were extremely skittish. I mean, just they would swim so fast and so hard, and I didn't know any better at the time. They would just be swimming in circles, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And then they'd die. So I called a guy and was talking to him. I was like, "Hey, you know, I'm new at this, but you know, I thought I knew more than this. What's going on?" And he says, "Well," he says, "is it a hard side tank?" I said, "Of course it is." He says, "No, I mean like steel tank." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, what's happening is, do you have any?" More than likely, he asked me another question. He said, "Do you have something for them to hide in? You know, underneath pots, like a flower pots or cinder blocks or something that they can swim in or swim beside, get beside, and hide?" And I said, "Well, no, I didn't know that was necessary." And he said, "It's very necessary. What they're doing is they're swimming and they're hitting the side of the tank in a frenzy, and they're concussing themselves and dying." That's something I didn't expect. But I did see them hitting the side. I just never thought about that being a real problem. So I stuck some pots in there, some clay pots. Well, first off, I bought the clay pots. I stuck them in the oven at 350 for like 30 minutes. I just didn't want to take a chance that there was some kind of contaminant on them. The wife was real happy about that. But anyway, I let them cool off, stuck them in there, have had no problem since. So that's where we're at the moment. What I did have a problem with before that, and I should have started with this, I had some plastic pots here and I didn't think anything about it. I stuck plastic pots into the water, and like I said, I just banged the dirt out of them because the water's kind of dirty anyway a lot of times with these fish, especially if you got 50 or so in a tank. But I dropped them in there, you know, and all of my numbers were right on my ammonia, my nitrites, nitrates. Everything was fine. The pH level was fine. But I set these pots in, and within days, I had fish dying. I mean, catastrophic. I mean, 4 or 5 at a time. Could not figure out what was going on. And I suspected, I didn't know what it was. It never dawned on me that those pots probably had a type of fertilizer or something in them, a chemical in them that was apparently poison to these fish. So I you know, it was too late for most of them. I ended up losing all but just like 3, and that's ridiculous. But I did keep the 3, and I went ahead and switched them to a different tank. And of course, I ordered more from my supplier. I believe he's in the Carolinas. But that being said, he's having a hard time because they're moving. They had a hurricane come through and do a ton of damage. So he's moving, his operation, and his operation is huge. He sells all over the world. But I went ahead and paid and got on the list, and I was apparently the last one on the list. So I'm now waiting on my new fish, and you know, it's just going to be a winter run. I'll get them in, I'll get them to size, and try to get them to breed. When they start breeding, I can separate and start selling. Not sure what the market's going to be like, and to be honest with you, this is just a small startup for me. I'm just trying it. I've never done this. You know, I have people all around me that, you know, raise cattle and sheep and horses. I don't know anything about them. I mean, not really. I mean, I know a little bit, just enough to be dangerous. But this, like I said, I've done this a little bit before. We're going to try it again. But like I said, I've had a lot of people asking about it, and it's not a big deal. They're just little fish. I don't know. We'll go in and see if we can see them. They're very skittish. The ones I raised before, I raised them through the winter when I lived in Springfield, and they survived without a problem. My son had a really bad motorcycle wreck, and I was at the hospital for a long time, and I didn't get the water switched out, and they died from ammonia poisoning. But anyway, I'll see if I can find them. They're very, very skittish. Hold on, let me see here. I'm not sure if you can see where they're at. Let's see if I can flush them out just a touch. There goes one. They're not as jumpy as they were. These are about 4 inches long. Well, three to 4. But that's just one of them. I believe they are probably all females, because we have had no production of babies, and they should have been producing by now. But it's just a small set. This is just a small setup. I have my heater set at 86 degrees. It maintains temperature. Any fluctuations, it jumps up. I've got my aeration, my 2 pots, and my underwater filter going. Whenever I get these other tanks going, they'll be bigger filtration. I'll have them filter through these tubs. But other than that, that's about it. So, if you have any questions or concerns, bring them up, say something. If I don't know it, I know people that do. This is exciting stuff. I'm excited to get this to work. Like I said, my wife grows her own plants to make her creams, her natural creams, and she uses my water for fertilizer. I've actually got several 55-gallon drums full, ready for it. She's actually feeds a lot of her plants with the water, and they really seem to like it. But anyway, like I said, you have any questions or comments, give me a call or send me a text on this thing. I'll try to do my best to answer. Have a good one.